So we all saw what happened on the evening of December 3rd going into December 4th. We all woke up that morning saying, what happened to the price of Bitcoin? Some of us didn't go to sleep that night because we were watching what was happening. So my question is, quickly, what happened that night and what are the broader implications of the bull market that we're seeing right now? Are we still in a bull market? Are we entering a bear market? What are you seeing?
So what happened that night? We saw the price of Bitcoin that was kind of consolidating around the 56,000 level drop to around, the lowest price point on Binance was 42,000. Classic liquidation cascade. This is what happens when traders are taking on too much leverage, and you have traders, exploit that kind of as an opportunity to get them out of their position, cause this liquidation cascade, right, which triggers stop losses, triggering stop losses, triggers is someone else's liquidation, and that cycle continues until there's a base of support, and that base of support was at 42,000, and then you saw an incredible amount of buying that took the price up to about 46, 47,000, and here we are today, and prices around 50,000, 51,000 today.
Okay, so a lot of people are borrowing, taking big risky loans in order to double down these investments on Bitcoin. Price starts to drop, they get liquidated, they're getting forced to actually sell, which creates a cascading effect, flooding the market with all this Bitcoin.
Exactly. And in reverse could happen. When we have a lot of traders that are shorting, they become, they may enter that trade, they may start that trade with all the right data to say it's a good trade, but then other shorters pile in to that, which creates this unsustainable condition that makes it ripe for a short squeeze, and that's where investors will push up the price, which causes this buying cascade.
Yes.
And we see it happen both ways, and that's the nature of Bitcoin.
Okay, so that happened. We stabilized. We're sitting around 50,000 right now. Where are we now? Where are we long term in the context of this market?
So what happened over the weekend really flushed out a lot of leverage, which is great for spot buyers or really any investors.
Spot buyers, people that are buying Bitcoin and holding it, they're actually...
Yeah, buying it on the retail exchanges. When you actually take custody or you even buy Bitcoin and you keep it on the exchange, you're buying it spot. When you're buying a contract that is trading on the price of Bitcoin, that's a derivative market, that's futures, that's options contracts. The on-chain data is showing us that really a lot of people took the opportunity to buy the dip, particularly the smaller investors, some institutional investors. It's really hard to say exactly, which entities are, showing confidence versus not showing confidence. So we use a metric called long-term holders versus short-term holders. And a lot of the coins that were sold were from short-term holders. But we see that the long-term holders are picking up more and more Bitcoin as the price gets lower, which provides a base level support for the price, which, it's a nice feature.
So that base level we're seeing was around 47, right? That's a strong support?
Yeah, so the base level is, it was at, so 53,500 is where you have the cutoff between a $1 trillion market cap and, if you're below that, then you're less than a $1 trillion market cap. Above that, we saw about 20% of the coins being sold. Below that, we saw that the real floor that Bitcoin may not really breach at this point is around 42,000. Now that floor keeps on moving higher and higher as these short-term buyers or even retail or anyone really comes in and buys the Bitcoin on these drops. So yeah, we do expect that floor to come up. Where it's come up to, we'll see over the next couple of weeks and update our kind of analysis on what that floor represents at this stage.
Okay, so right now on-chain metrics are telling you that we're probably not in a bear market yet. What else are you looking at?
Yeah, so the other thing that I look at before I can make a determination is whether we're going into a bear market. And by the way, the definition of a bear market that you'll see from mainstream sources like Bloomberg or CNBC, they'll use a classic definition, and that's a 20% correction in 2 months. So it does technically fit that description. But Bitcoin operates a lot differently because it is kind of a closed market. It's scarce. It's really sentiment driven. We saw in 2017 multiple bear markets in a bull market, according to that definition. We saw 12 corrections that were greater than 30%. What we're seeing now is we're seeing these corrections, but they're smaller corrections. They're not putting us into a bear market. they seem to just be creating a little bit of volatility on the way up. So it's a different kind of a texture to this bull market. It doesn't look anything like 2013, where we had, just an incredible, bull market. 2017 is the most recent one. It doesn't look anything like that. It almost looks like a hybrid between the two. And I think the reason for that is because you have a lot of capital that's coming in they have more options now to spread risk. They may not be interested in exposure directly to the asset. They may want to be participating on the derivatives markets. They may want to own stocks in mining companies. So there's a lot of capital coming in, but they're coming in different ways. And ultimately, I think it just dampens the volatility. But it's great for long-term investors because it's one of the classic signs that we would be entering a bear market is a blow-off top right before we go into a bear market. We haven't seen that yet. We saw that the last time we saw that was in December 2017, where we saw the price basically double in a month from November to December. That was a classic blow-off top. And the price really couldn't support being at the 20,000 level, so it crashed back down. We see a lot of really good sustainable growth in Bitcoin's price appreciation right now, which also leads me to believe that this is just a momentary bout of volatility, and we're going to see price going up. I think we have to consolidate a little bit over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll see some good price action return. And what gives me more confidence that good price action is going to return is that the Federal Reserve is continuing their policies of loose monetary policy. They're continuing to quantitative ease. The Senate is going to be voting today to raise the debt ceiling by $2.5 trillion, which gives them more capacity. And so as long as we have these loose monetary policies, we should see asset appreciation across the board. It's not only going to affect Bitcoin, it's going to affect all traditional assets as well.
And then zooming out even further, because we do talk a lot about how investing in Bitcoin is really a long-term investment. I mean, nothing changes there, right? If you're buying Bitcoin now and you're holding it for a long period of time, we're still on track for growth.
Absolutely. And the biggest challenge for a lot of Bitcoin investors, particularly newer ones, is surviving the volatility and just keeping a level head, thinking about it long term as a long-term investment asset. I tell people that no one ever invested in Bitcoin and lost their money if they held it for 3.5 years, right? From peak to trough to peak. So yeah, and so far that's still held true. So I believe it's going to continue to hold true because Bitcoin represents the least risky asset in the entire digital asset space because it has some special properties, particularly that it's the oldest, we all know that, but it's also the most decentralized, and there's no single entity. It's not a security. It's a commodity / property, so it's not going to fall into some tough regulation from the SEC. They really are focused on securities. If you look at what Gary Gensler is saying, he sees that Bitcoin kind of stands alone and everything else has the attributes of a security. So I would assign a different level of risks to those other things. But if you're not in Bitcoin right now, you might see it as risky. If you're in the digital asset space, you see it as not risky. And I think we're at a point in time right now where there's a confluence of these two mindsets, and it's interesting to see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll be keeping an eye on it. And if you do want to learn more about Bitcoin specifically, check out our series on this, Bitcoin Bite Size. We go through every single one of ththese topics. You get an entire education in, I think, 45 to 50 minutes, actually, which is pretty amazing. And if you want to talk to us or learn more, go to sascodigital.com, reach out, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will see you next time.